Okay, Psachim Daf Daled. Rav bar Achud Rab Chia ubar Achte. Rav was the son of the brother of Rav Chia and the daughter of Rav Chia. Son of the brother of Chia and the sister of Rav Chia. Right, so Rav Chia's brother from his father married his mother from his sister, meaning his two siblings married each other, but they themselves weren't related. Right? Like my half brother can marry my half sister. They don't share any parents. That's totally fine, right? And that yielded Rav, right? Rav was a child of that. So Rav Chia was Rav's uncle, double uncle. Kisalik Lahassam, when he got to when Rav came from Bavel to Eretz Yisrael, that's where Rav Chia was. Amrulay, he asked him if Ivu was Kayim. Right? He asked him, is your father still alive? Ivu was Rav's father. Rav Chia is asking him about his brother, right? So he says, is Ivu Kayim? Amrulay ima Kayemis. He was deceptive. He didn't answer him about Ivu. He asked him about his mother. Right, and he says, is your mother alive? Right, Amalei ima kayemes, Amalei Ivu kayem. So he asked him again, Ivu kayem. Right, so basically he asked him, when he asked him, is your father alive? He said, well, is my mother alive? And then he asked him, well, is your mother alive? He said, well, is my father alive? Right, so he didn't answer him straight. Why? Again, because this is a continuation of what we learned yesterday, right? That a person, he doesn't want to say bad news, right? So he asked him, is your father alive? So Rav didn't answer him straight, yes. No, he's dead, right? He answered, well, is my mother alive? He answered him with a question, right? Not supposed to directly say bad things. So Amalei L'Shamei, so Reb Chia, after he understood what Rav meant, he understood that both his brother and his sister had passed away. So he tells his shamas, "Chalotzli min oli, take off my shuva. Hoilich kela achar lebeis merchatz." So take off his shoe because you wanted to be noeg avelos, right? V'hoilich kela, and take my vessels, whatever, my clothing achar lebeis merchatz. Bring my stuff to the shower house. He wants to take a shower. Shmami not klas. You see three things. Shmami not avel also binos sandal. You see that an avel is also in the ilas sandal. That's why. He's also to wear leather shoes, and that's why Reb Chia took off his shoes. You see the shmur rechaika, which means that if you hear about avelos after 30 days, right after a while already, so shmur korev you have to sit shiva, right? Shmur rechaika you only sit one day, and therefore, how do we know that? Because right away Reb Chia went to the Beis HaMerchatz, right? You're not allowed to take a shower if you're an avel. So must be the fact that he took off the nilas sandal, that was enough. Why? Because Shmamina, the third thing, the mixes and emke kulai, right? So first of all, avelos of shmur rechaika is only noyeg one day. Second of all, mixes and emke kulai. So all you have to do is, where mixes and emke kulai is halacha also by us, that on the seventh day you only have to sit a little bit, and then that's it, right? Because mixes and emke kulai, right? So you see Reb Chia. So too over here, shmur rechaika, you just had to be noyeg one thing in avelos. Right, and he took off his shoes, and then that's it enough. He's already ready to go to the bathhouse, right? Because that's it. That's all you have to be knowing. Because shmur rechaika is only one day, and miktasim kekula. Okay. Hahuda Amar Dunu Dini. There's a guy who always used to say Dunu Dinu. Let's make a court case. Let's everything that used to come up. He said, let's go to Bezdin, and hear what the Chacham has to say. So Amri, they said Shmami no medon kaasi. Must be he comes from Shevet Dan. Tichsiv Dan Yodina Moike Achat Shiftei Israel, because it says Dan. Dan will judge his nation. So this guy, he's always into din. He's always going to Bezdin, right? So it's like a siman that he came from that shevet, right? So again, we're saying we're talking in terms of things that people say and how that affects what we think about them. Rahuda havaka azil v'amar akef yama asisni birasa. There was a guy who used to say, I would, if I had the means, I would build a palace on the shores of the sea, on the banks of the sea. That's, he always used to say that. So they found that Taka came from Zavulun. The Ksiva says by Zavulun l'chayv yamim yishkain that Zvulun will live the bracha of Yaakov was that he'll live on the shores of the sea, right? So that's taka. That's why this person always used to say that. Okay. V'hasha the kaiman the kulam or urtu. Fine. The Gemara says now that we've already decided that or means evening, right? So or l'arba asar boys because chametz means urta. In the evening, that's when you check the chametz michli. Bein Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Meir. Both according to Rabbi Yehuda, both according to Rabbi Meir. Chametz in asar el mishei shaisel mala. We're going to see later. We have a sugya that all Tanaim agree that not only is chametz asar on Pesach, chametz asar already from chatzos of erev Pesach, right? The chatzos of right. Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Meir have a machlokes as to what about the previous hour? The previous hour before chatzos. Well, before the 6th hour. Right? Everyone agrees that you have to start the beer on the 6th hour, which means an hour before chatzos, right? That's when you have to start doing the beer. However, what about the 5th hour and the 4th hour? So that's a machlokes tanoim. Our Rav Meir holds the 5th hour you're allowed to eat chametz. Rabbi Yehuda says you're not allowed to eat chametz, right? And you have to stop eating for an hour before the beer also, right? So that's a machlokes tanoim we're going to get to later on. However, everyone agrees that right, that l'maisa chametz is only aser midoraisa from 6 hours onwards. It says the Gemara, so v'nivdik b'shis. So why is b'dikas chametz have to be done the night before? Why don't just be b'dikas the 6th hour? V'chitem as reason makdim in the mitzvah. We're going to tell you there's a concept of reason makdim in the mitzvah is that people who want to do the mitzvah properly and their reason, right? They'll always do the mitzvah as early as possible, and that's why we have to do it the night before. Well, says Gemara still that shouldn't require you to do it the night before. Nivdik b'tzafra, you should check in the morning. You know what? Just like we have by Milo, by Mashmini Yimo B'Sar Lasai, it says Mashmini, you have to do the Milo. Tanya, Kolel, Kula Kashan Lila the whole day. Is Kashan Lila, it's just reason Makdim the mitzvahs. There is reason or Makdim the mitzvahs. They do it as early as possible. Shenemar vayashkem Avram Abayka, just like it says by Avram that when he got up to do the mitzvah of Akedah, it says he got up early, right? So you see from here, and even though the mitzvah of Mila is a concept of reason, we don't tell you to do anything the night before. It's only from the morning, right? So all the Achronim ask, what do you mean Mila is puzzle at night? So right, you can't do Mila at night. So what do you bring me a raya that you don't do it the night before, right? Okay, so they say maybe there's no mitzvah even to be misasik in the mitzvah before. What's it called? The Rabbeinu David, he changes the gears a little bit. But either way, the Gemara is bringing a raya that you see from here that even if this reason Makdimin, exists in the morning is enough. Why you have to go all the way the night before? So the reason why the mitzvah b'dika is because people are more matzah the night before. I guess Erev Pesach, people are very busy, right? They're not home all the time. So therefore, we tell them to do it the night before. Another reason, right? And we'll see, to use sunlight is a problem, right? So therefore, you might not see everything. We want you to use a candle, and that the candle is most effective at night. And therefore, we say the b'dika is in the evening. A tzubim rabbanon means a young rabbi. He should not open up a seder, a seder to learn be'urta in the evening. The the eve before the 13th in the evening before the 14th, right? So you shouldn't start learning before you do b'dika. Maybe you'll start learning and you're going to forget about b'dikas chametz because you're going to get involved in your learning. You're going to not do the mitzvah. Okay. Ba'uminei merab Nachman bar Yitzchak. They asked Reb Nachman bar Yitzchak the following question: Someone rents out his house to his friend on the 14th day of Nisan. Who is the chiyuv al mi livdaik? Is it al masker livdaik? Dechamir didehu. I just moved in here. I'm a renter. I just moved in on the 14th. I rented your house for Pesach, right? So I moved on the 14th. But any chametz that's here now, it's not mine. It's yours, right? So therefore, it's your chiyuv. It's the masker. It's the renter's. It's the owner's chiyuv b'dika. Maybe it's on the one who rents livdaik the yisur b'shus ekod because it's considered his rishus. Right. So Rashi explains to us, right, that we have to clarify a few things. First of all, this chiyuv bedika, right, is really just a derabanan, because midoraisa bittul really works. Meaning, whose chametz is this? Really, it's the chametz of the owner, right? So who's the one that's going to be over bali roa bali matzeh, right? If it's not mine, right? If it's not my chametz, so I'm not over. Just like I could sell it to a guy. We'll see, right? If it's hefker, if it doesn't belong to me, right? So therefore, I am really pater from bali roa bali matzeh, right? So whose problem is it? The Pasha says the problem is it's the owner's. It's the one who owns the chametz. So the chayr, it's your chiyuv bedika, the owner's chiyuv bedika, right? So Rashi explains no. The chiyuv bedika is really only the Rabbanan, because we'll see on Daf on Amud Beis there's a concept of bittul, right? And Chachamim said that everyone, even if you do bedika, you have to do bittul, which means, according to some Rishonim, that it's like hefker. According to Rashi, you make it as if it's not b'rshus, right? So as long as you do bittul, you're covered. So therefore, really, the daraisa here is not a question, right? And some even hold that a Jew's chametz in another Jew's house, right, I'm going to be over also. Meaning, let's say I have your chametz in my house and you were in mafkirin, right? So I'm going to be over. Some hold that, whatever. But the point is over here, as Rashi explains,
you're responsible for it. If you're not responsible for it, why are you over?
That's what some hold.
It's not yours. It's not responsible. But you're not both of the kiyuma. What do you care?
No, you're not right to be kiyuma, but it says balira chametz leimot say b'vatechem. So no, you can't do bittul on someone else's thing. So you can only do bedika.
So if you find it,
yeah, I guess. Or you give it to him. I mean, you probably decide for him what, you can probably decide for him. No, but the point over here, that Rashi points out, and that's why he points out, is he's saying really everyone did bittul, right? Because the chiyuv derabanan we're going to see later on is that everyone has to do bittul. So therefore, midor, right? So no one's really going to be over anything. The question only is that midor rabbanan chachamim were matzrich chiyuv bedika. Midor rabbanan chachamim said that even though everyone's going to be mevatel it, but still, if you find chametz, you might come to eat it, right? You might come to wait around, right? Therefore, we say you have to, right? You must be beidik before Pesach to make sure there's no problem, make sure no one's going to ever find chametz on Pesach. So that's a chiyuv derabanan. So the chiyuv derabanan of bedikas chametz, the question right now is who's the chiyuv for? Is the chiyuv going to be on the guy who owns it, or is the chiyuv the guy who rents it?
The funny thing is, the second line of Rashi in the Sechta,
right.
What we're saying now,
that's Taisus Kasha. The first Taisus asks on the second Rashi, how could Rashi is saying the chiyuv bedika is to get away from bali roa bali matzeh, right? What do you mean? You need bittul. So you're not going to be over in bali roa bali matzeh. So the Ran answers Taisus Kasha. He said in Kanami, Avad the Rashi knows later on the Gemara says you have to do bittul, but that's something that was a takana that was put later on. In the time of the Mishnah, there was no chiyuv bittul. We'll see later on. There is a Mishnah Daf Yomi Pesachim that says that if a guy is stuck somewhere and he's not going to be able to do bedikas chametz, then he's mevatel b'libay. So bittul is a Talmudic, is a Mishnah concept. We see the concept of bittul in the Mishnah, but the fact that it became a chiyuv for everybody to do, that was later on. That was in the time of the Amoraim, and therefore there are two different distinct stages, distinct ways you can get rid of your chametz. Either you can do bedika and beer, or you can do bittul. Midaraisa, they both work. So Rashi is saying that on the track of bittul, on the track of bedika, when the Mishnah says you have to do bedika, right? It means even if someone doesn't do bittul, right? Bedika works to take away the chiyuv of bali roa bali matzeh. And if you do bedika, you check everywhere you're supposed to, and then all of a sudden you find something on Pesach, you're pater. You're pater because you did everything you can. Right. No. So the issue is you might find the gluska yafeh. If you find the gluska yafeh, you're not going to be over. It's only if you wait around and you say, "Oh, it's nice, I might eat it." Then that's when it kicks in. That's why the Gemara says you need bittul. Okay, we'll get to all this. Fine. So the point over here is that our shaila is who's the chayvas bedika? It's a Rabban, and Rashi says it's a pasha technical shaila. Who's the more dominant presence here in this house that we should say the chayvas bedika should be on him? So is it the person it's his chametz, so it's your stuff, so we should make you the beidik? Or no, the guy who lives there, it's his rishos. Okay, so Tashema, I'm asking why is someone who rents out a house to rent. The seicher, the renter is the one who's chayav to do mezuzah. So you see, in terms of mitzvahs of a house, you go to the renter, the person who's living there. Over there, Misharshi says that mezuzah is chayav hadar. Mezuzah might be different. specifically mezuzah, that's a chayvas hadar, because it says, we learn from a pasuk, beischa bi'ascha, it's the house that you go in, you come out. So that might specifically be by mezuzah, that the chayva of the person who lives, it's the chayva of mezuzah on the person who lives there. Hachamay, but chametz, what's the halachas? We have a brayso, hamasker by chaveroi. Someone rents a house. If before you gave him the keys, the 14th day of Nisan came, which means that the 14th day of Nisan, the evening, right? The evening of the 14th, when the chiv bedika was chal, if it was still not rented yet, or he didn't give the keys yet, right? So then alamasker lived like. Then, since at that point, the Seicher couldn't even come and be beit, he didn't have the keys yet. Right, so avada, the chiyuv is chal on the masker, and then he has to do it. However, but if you already gave him the keys, and then chalav asr, then al asar lived. Okay, so it depends. It depends really who has rights to the chatzar, who has rights to the house at the beginning of arba asr. Let's say you are masker a house on arba asr. So cheskasei baduk or ein cheskasei baduk, right? Can you assume that it was already checked or not? Yeah. Right now that we're so could you assume? It says the Gemara l'may nafkamina. What's the nafkamina? The Shalai ask him, did he check? The Gemara says no. The leisa lahai l'shiyulei. He's not around. Right? La truche lahai mai. Do we have to tell this guy now to do bedika misafek, to be tereach and do bedika misafek, right? Or can he safely assume that the person mistama was baidik like he was supposed to? So everyone is believed on bir chametz. Afilu nashim, afilu avadim, afilu ktanim. Even nashim, even avadim, even ktanim. You can believe them that they checked to the chametz. My taima mehemni, says the Gemara. Why are they believed? Lav. Is it not because? Is it not because? Sorry, just waiting for this to load. Right. So anyway, there's a chazaka that the man of the house, whatever the person in charge, was boidek. Right. So therefore, that's why. Anyway, there's a chazaka that it's boidek. So that's why you can trust nashim and avadim. Right. The kasovar, because this Tana holds everyone is considered a chaver regarding b'dikas chametz, right? An amaretz usually, right? There's an amaretz and there's a chaver. A chaver is like a tamid chacham, someone who respects the rabbanim, right? Someone, and a chaver, always we can assume that everything that comes out of him is kosher, and amaretz not. But regarding b'dikas chametz, hakol chaver b'dikas chametz. Everyone is considered a chaver, and therefore it's really considered cheskasei baduk, and therefore you could trust anybody. The Tanya. Chaver shemeis, if you have a chaver, call him a rabbi who died, a person who left a whole, a whole megura is like not a bucket, a much bigger box of peiros, right? Afilu b'nei yoiman, even if they just brought them that day, right? Even though he died that day and they just brought them that day, you can assume that it was mesukan. You can assume that the chaver fixed it right away, because chazaka al chaver, there's chazaka that a chaver will always be mighty davar mesukan, right? But right, he doesn't want a takal to come from it. So therefore, so too, since he holds that hakol chaverim it's of digas chametz, and because cheskasei baduk, right? So too, that's a right to our shaila. You don't know. Of course, you can assume cheskasei baduk, just like you could trust women and avadim, right? Avada, it's because cheskasei baduk, because everyone is considered a chaver regarding dikas chametz, and therefore, also over here you don't have to check again, because you can assume that he did. Says the Gemara, well, maybe not. Maybe the only reason why you could safely assume that something is baduk is because you have the amira, right, of the nashim, of the avadim. They tell you that it was checked, and therefore you're not just being samech on the chazaka, you're being samech on them, right? So over here, when you don't have someone telling you moved in on the 14th and he's not around, you don't know if he checked, you don't have someone telling you, you don't have someone confirming that he did it, so maybe you can't trust it. Where it says amira dehani, the amira of a nashim va'avadim midi mishasha isbei, does that have any worth to it? Since when are they neman? They're not neman. Elamai the cheskasei baduk, right? Must be the cheskasei baduk. Must be. It's not because of their amira, because since when is their amira worth anything, right? So it must be cheskasei baduk. That's the real reason. Says the Gemara. Hi hakol ne'emanim. So if so, this brayso that says hakol ne'emanim, right? If you're totally discrediting and you're telling me that the words of the nashim avadim ktanim aren't worth anything, right? So then why does it say hakol ne'emanim? It should nothing to do with ne'emanim. You're totally discrediting their words. You tell me the whole reason is not really because they're saying it's fine, but rather because it's cheskas baduk. So then it should say it's always on the 14th day. You can assume that it's baduk. Why are you telling me akol ne'emanim? Ela Gemara says, Elamai mishum amir dehani. It's because of the amira. Haloi amri hani. Elamai mishum amira dehani. Elamai, you'll tell me, is because of the amira, right? However, loi amri hani. If they would not have told us, if the nashim would not have told us, loi. So you're telling me now that your reading of the brayso is that fakert, that it's dafka because of the amira that you believe in. Loi amri hani. But if you didn't have the amira of the nashim of the tanim, you would not believe them. So tifshet minei, you should be able to prove the opposite. And you need the amira of the nashim of the tanim. Otherwise, you would assume ein cheskasei baduk. So now that the Gemara has proved that obviously the amir of the Nashim Vadim does have value here, right? And the Bryce is specifically saying you can trust it only because they said it, right? So now you have a raya that otherwise it's a problem. So therefore, in our situation, when you don't have the amira, right, it'll be a problem. So the Gemara says, "Loy, you could say that the chazaka is that it's going to be checked. Over here, we know that he didn't check. We know that in the case of the Bryce, we know he didn't. We know he, right? We know he didn't check. Therefore, you can't just assume the chazaka because we know he wasn't around. You know he didn't check. The ka'amri hani. However, what we do have is that the nashim avodah tanim are saying, but kine, we checked it. Ma'odetema, I would think loy lahem niru rabbanan. We would still the chacham would not trust them. Mashmalan, that no kavan the b'dikas chametz midrabanan, and this is one of the most crucial lines in the entire parak. Cave on the b'dikas chametz is only midrabanan. Why the midaraisa b'bittul b'al masagi? Because midaraisa all you need is bittul, right? So therefore him midrabanan midrabanan. So once everyone does bittul, the only chiv b'dikas is only midrabanan, and since it's only chiv midrabanan, so we do trust the nashim and avadim to tell us that they themselves checked it. Okay, so now Taisus asks right away, what do you mean? Shchita. In all kashrus laws, we trust our wives. Why is it such a chiddush over here? Taisus says because b'dikas chametz, it's hard. Chametz is very hard, and therefore maybe we would say that you can trust nashim v'avadim, right? So therefore we need specifically again the Gemara to reiterate and tell us no, since it's Rabbanan, we do trust them. Okay, and over here is the machlokes Rashi Taisus. As Rashi says that the idea of bittul is from the word tashbisu. Taisus says tashbisu sa'ar. You should get rid of chametz. That's that. Rashi says hashbasa means believe. Right. Right. Hashbasa delayv he hashbasa. That's Rashi. Taisus doesn't like it. A bunch of kashas, and he says va'emeri demidaraisa bebitul ba'al masagi mitam demeachar shebitlei have a hefker v'yatzamer shusay. Bittul is like hefker, and just it's not mine. And we'll see that it's not mine. I'm not chayv. Okay. Let's just continue the Gemara. Hamasker buys the chaveroi. If someone rents out a house, his friend b'cheskas baduk, right? It was under the assumption that it was checked. And he found that the taka wasn't checked. Mahu. What's the halacha? Is that enough to say, look, I thought it was checked? Is it a mekach? It's mekach, right? Mekach tos. So now I can renege on the rental or not. So or not. Maybe we say, nah, that's not enough. Tashima damar abayi let me buy ba'asra de lo yavi igra. Ubadku. Not of course in the case where people don't give money, they don't usually hire people to do b'dikas chametz, right? So a person would rather who doesn't mind doing the mitzvah himself, right? If you're in a place, right, where people don't hire other people to do the chametz, it means that the minhag is that people like doing the mitzvah, right? So therefore, okay, big deal. You have to do the mitzvah. You thought that I did bedika, but I didn't. Okay, but it's in a place where everyone likes doing it, so it's not such a big deal. Ella, not only that, even in a place where people do hire other people to do chametz, you might say, oh, it's worth money now, right? This is taka worth money. The fact that I have to be waiting, now I have to hire somebody, right? So you would say maybe in that situation, since people really don't do it, they just hire people. So therefore, it's a monetary thing, and now it's a mekach tos because now I have to do it. No, still not. We say that there's a concept that a person would rather would like to do money with his a mitzvah with his money, and therefore even it's not considered mekach tos. That's not enough to mekach tos. Most people you would assume would still want to rent it. Tanan Hasam, Rav Meir Omer. Okay, this is already started the new sugya. We'll start it. Nan Hasam. We have a mission. Rameir says you can eat chametz the entire 5th hour, right, until the beginning of the 6th hour, and then we start from Tchilas Sheish, and you start burning at the beginning of the 6th hour. Midoraisa at the end of the 6th hour. That's when the chiyuv is, right? But at the beginning of the 6th, that's when you start burning. Yehuda Aimer Eichlin Kol Arba. He says no. The full 4th hour you eat. Toilin Kol Chamesh. You have to leave it for 5. The 5th hour, you're not allowed to eat it, but you're allowed to give it to your animal. However, v'sarfim et tchilas sheish, and you start burning at tchilas sheish. The kulam miyah chametz misheishois l'mala aser. Everyone agrees that chametz is aser from 6 hours and onwards. Minol on the Gemara says, how do you know? Where do we know this concept? Right? Where do we know this concept that chametz is aser not just on Pesach itself, but even from Erev Pesach? Okay, so we'll stop here. We might have a bunch of tirutzim. Tomorrow we'll see, but that's the kasha. Kasha is how do you know that Erev Pesach chametz is aser? Pasha says it's 7 days is Pesach. How do you know that even from before? Okay. Kol tov.
Can you hear me okay now?
Now I hear you, yes.
But I think you take a look at the properties of the meeting. I wasn't able to turn on my video. I think you have it disabled for me. Don't look at it now when you get a chance.
I see your video.
You can see me?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Then never mind, because I can't see myself. I thought you weren't able to see me.
Okay.
All right, never mind. Have a good day.
Byron wants to know if you, for Thanksgiving, to send out an email about Shachris. 7:30.
Oh, okay. Shachris at 7:30. Okay. Did I forget to put it on the chart?
Yes, he says regular time.
Okay, so 7:30 tomorrow. Okay.
Okay, good.
Right, I'll send it out. Okay.
Okay, cool.
Okay. Have a great day. Bye.
Yeah.